What are Batman's least favorite shoes? Killer Crocs. Hello, Internet, and welcome to a new episode of My Favorite Things, where today we'll be wrapping up the month of spooky October videos. I'm going to analyze the instant gaming classic that has spawned several sequels, prequels, spin-offs, and DLCs. That's right, my friends, Batman Arkham Asylum. It's definitely one of the most iconic works from gaming's 7th generation, given to us by Rocksteady and Warner Bros. In 2009. Although I enjoyed a 2011 sequel, Arkham City, a teeny tiny bit more, I still consider Arkham Asylum to be an awesome game and a great way to continue the month. So guys, welcome to the Madhouse, where today we'll see why Arkham Asylum is one of my favorite things. Okay, how can anything actually scare the player as Batman? He's a master martial artist who breaks people's ribs for a hobby. If anyone should be scared, it should be the criminals. Actually, that's quite true. As you stealthily take out each armed thug in a room, one by one, you get to see their heart rates increase. They start jumping at each sound, their dialogue becomes more and more nervous, and nothing satisfies you like the screaming that ensues as you hang someone off a gargoyle. Terrifying criminals as Batman is quite awesome, but there's just as much for Batman to be afraid of. First and foremost are some of the villains. There's a very thrilling sequence fairly late in the game in which Batman has to explore the monstrous Killer Croc's lair in the sewers to collect samples. It's really intense. You have to slowly walk across platforms so that Croc doesn't sense your movement, and then he randomly jumps out at you from all angles. Something that makes this part great is getting to meet him before it all goes down. We see how massive and terrifying Croc is when compared to Batman. So we know what's hunting us from under the water, and that any second he could come out and pull you under. I remember my first few times playing it, that part terrified me. For some reason, Croc looks completely different in each game, but whatever. Then there's Scarecrow, whom I referenced in my last video. Of course, when Dr. Crane comes around, you know things are gonna get crazy. He has multiple cinematic sequences throughout the game, and they're each brilliantly done. Scarecrow keeps making Batman go all trippy and hallucinate wildly. These three sequences reveal more about Batman's degrading mental state, but I'll get into that later. Over time, the hallucinations get weirder and weirder. In the first Scarecrow encounter, Batman sees what he thinks is Gordon's dead body. Oracle, aka Batgirl on wheels, doesn't pick up his calls, and Batman enters a morgue where he sees the bodies of his dead parents. Afterwards is a hide from the light kind of minigame. Then, after each trip, Batman gets a bad case of the munchies. The end. I'll talk more about what these scenes mean later, but these are just two examples of all the trippy stuff that goes on in Arkham. About halfway through the game, crazed maniacs get released and jump out at you from behind corners or just wander around and do their thing. And finally, just the setting of Arkham Asylum is borderline creepy. On the outside, Arkham Mansion looks like your run-of-the-mill haunted house, complete with a graveyard and everything from killer clowns to reptilian monsters. I'm surprised there aren't any ghosts or ghouls running around. Arkham recently got touched up with new tech when the game takes place, but various sections of it still look dirty and run down. The mansion, intensive treatment, penitentiary, and the hospital each look like their own setting for a horror show, and the brilliant score ties it all together. It makes each corridor and tunnel that much creepier. So Batman is literally trapped on this island in a rundown asylum surrounded by crazies. Yeah, although it's not scary in a traditional sense, you can probably see why I saved this for October. Batman Arkham Asylum plays out like a well-crafted television special of the animated series. Even Kevin Conroy, Mark Hamill, and Arlene Sorkin return to lend their voices, like they've done in so many Batman animations. It's like playing just another one of Batman's many adventures in a lively and crime-ridden Gotham. Just another day at the office for Batman and friends. Break the clavicles of criminals, do some detective work, get the help of some friends, and stop another one of Joker's evil plans. And again, that's something that makes this story feel so lively. It's not Batman's first throwdown with anyone. Even though much isn't explicitly stated, we know he's had several encounters with each of the villains, so the world feels large and vast. Anyways, the main story of the game is that after taking the Joker in again and bringing him to Arkham Asylum, Joker gets loose in a coordinated effort with Harley Quinn and is able to instate his master plan. Batman has to venture through all the dangers of the asylum in a frantic attempt to get Arkham Island under control once again. Along the way, he has to save several Arkham employees, take out Joker's thugs, and subdue all the supervillains who are running free. All the while, Batman has to resist giving in to the insanity that runs rampant through the asylum. Of course, being a 15-hour game, I can't fully cover every plot detail, but that's the gist of it. Personally, I thoroughly enjoyed every minute of it. There's always the mystery and intrigue of Batman trying to uncover what exactly the Joker is up to. There are plenty of iconic Batman villains to keep track of, and many times you're thrown into a twisted and unexpected loop like the Scarecrow encounters, having to survive in the Croc's lair, and Poison Ivy taking over the island through the power of landscaping. There's always something to keep you engaged, making Batman's night an emotional roller coaster. It's awesome. Any Batman fan will definitely enjoy this night in the asylum. Wonder who the main character of Batman Arkham Asylum is. So Spider-Man is really fantastic in this. Okay, I'm just joshing. But in all seriousness, this game deserves to be hailed as one of those classic Batman stories. It's easily better than the overrated Killing Joke. I mean, have you seen that joke of a movie? Anyways, in my first video, when I discussed the character of Captain America, I described how there are many stories about characters who go through an arc, a gradual change in something about them throughout the film. But I also mentioned how some of the best stories are about those who refuse to change in the face of adversity, and Batman fits so perfectly in this category. One of the reasons why so many people love this character and keep coming back to him after 80 years is how he has his morals tested again and again, and he needs to resist succumbing to the crazy world around him. We see this aplenty in Arkham Asylum. Batman is stranded on an island full of psychos, and it's his job to restore order. Every turn there's another monster that pushes him to his absolute limit. Instantly after the Joker breaks out, he gives Batman the choice to kill him and end the night before it even begins. We see him flinch, wanting to knock off the Joker with the Batarang and push him to his death, but he holds himself back. Now the question is, how much longer can he hold back? This directly ties in with the other aspect of Batman's challenge in Arkham. He has to prove that he doesn't belong there with everyone else. Think about it, an entire detention center filled with theatrical crazies, and on the outside is just another one of them. I mean, seriously, look at him. Does this look like a perfectly sane guy to you? And the game misses no chances to remind us of this. Like in the aforementioned Scarecrow scenes, the last encounter is the strangest. See what I did there? Okay. The final scene takes what I just said about Batman and the villains and flips it. Batman and the Joker swap places. In the game's introduction, Batman, Gordon, and the Arkham guards escort Joker to the intensive treatment, but in the hallucination, Batman is being wheeled in by Joker, Quinn, Scarecrow, and Zsasz. It's one nut wheeling another, just like in the beginning. Scarecrow even remarks in this that Batman never got over his parents' death, and it drove him mad. He spent years training in martial arts, biology, chemistry, physics, engineering, and computer science, and then decided to dress up like a nocturnal, echolocating flying mammal to assault criminals. So despite what everyone thinks about him, and perhaps what he thinks about himself, he needs to prove that he can maintain his sanity. He can't fall victim to what's overcome everyone else he fights, or he deserves to be locked up in a nut house too. Every time he has a run-in with Scarecrow, he can't give in to the fear he experiences from the toxins. We see in the scenes where he hides from Crane's gaze that the way to defeat him is to shine the bat signal onto him. So what is this saying? Well, Batman is Bruce Wayne's way of coping with his loss. Of course, it's a very unhealthy outlet. Maybe he should have taken up golf or something. But anyhow, being Batman is what prevents Bruce from absolutely losing it. Batman's a figure of hope that proves himself to be more than the sum of his parts. And through Batman, he can conquer his internal insanity and the craziness around him in the asylum. And that's ultimately why I think Arkham Asylum is so effective. It fully utilizes video games as an art medium to deliver a brilliant character study. We see the player play as Batman, and even from a gameplay perspective that's great, but we also play as him because we see what's going on in his head. We see what others think about him, and we struggle with him throughout the whole story. Like plenty of Batman stories, the main villain is the legendary Joker, but along for the ride are also Harley Quinn, Ivy, Bane, Croc, Scarecrow, and Zsasz, but obviously Joker's where it's at. Side note, I know Ivy's not technically naked, but I'm just gonna throw this censored bar in here anyways, yeah. So again, Joker is awesome. From the animation to the voice acting, he's fantastic in this. Definitely one of my favorite interpretations. It's said that Batman has the best rogues gallery. Each one of his iconic enemies reflects some part of his character. The Joker shows the insane part, Two-Face shows the thirst for justice and his multiple personalities, Riddler goes with Batman's intelligence, Penguin and wealth, Poison Ivy goes with Bruce's love of gardening. Over the course of the game, we learn more and more about his scheme and why exactly he took over the asylum. In the intro, Batman suspects that Joker allowed his capture too easily, like he wanted to be captured. And of course, Batman's right. Joker coordinated his conquest of the island, starting with a fire at Blackgate Prison. Due to the fire, all the inmates and all his henchmen had to be relocated to Arkham. Now that everyone was in place, he had Harley use her access and knowledge of the place to release them once he got loose. After taking out the guards and wreaking havoc, Joker searches for a serum that transforms people into giant monsters that he paid one of the doctors to work on. But after she grew a conscience, he came to finish it himself. With the completed serum called Titan, Joker plans to create an army of giant monsters and cause chaos worldwide. To prevent the National Guard and SWAT team from invading the island, he threatens to poison Gotham's water supply, cause no one's ever tried that before.
I don't like them putting chemicals in the water that turn the friggin' frogs gay!
So that's the gist of the plan, but the other villains are just as you remember them. Ivy loves her plants, and combined with Titan they become extremely dangerous. Bane does his Bane smashing stuff, Croc does Croc things, Scarecrow does the trippy stuff, and Harley gets kicked around. So overall, it's a very original and crazy villain plot. Sadly, later in the series, you get so tired of the Joker. Naturally, he returns in the sequel as one of the main villains. Spoiler alert, he dies in the end. I thought that was a bold move in Arkham City, and I was excited to see who'd Batman challenge next. Then the prequel Arkham Origins was announced, and I was excited to see new villains like Black Mask, Deathstroke, and Firefly take the reins. But then there's some big reveal that Black Mask was being impersonated by the real main villain the whole time, the Joker. Wow, what a surprise. Okay, I was pretty disappointed, but as long as they didn't do it again, I'll be fine. Spoiler alert, they brought him back again in the dumbest way possible. So I'm happy to talk about him back in the day before he became so overused and boring. Mini rant over. In an asylum, of course, one of the prevailing themes in the game is insanity. I've already gotten really into it when it comes to Batman, so I'll stop beating the dead bat horse. But I'll add one last thing, since I've gone over Joker's plan already. In the finale, Joker shoots Batman with the Titan serum, as he was actually trying to hit Gordon. Instead of going through the transformation, Batman is able to keep himself composed. Even when everything in his body is telling him to give in, his sheer will to take down the Joker keeps him sane. Similarly to the Scarecrow challenges. Anyways, besides Batman, Arkham Asylum leaks madness, and there's a question looming over the whole place. Does the asylum actually work, or is it just a glorified prison? We hear audio logs about psychiatrists trying to get through to their patients, the supervillains. After all the counseling, no one seems to have changed. Well, except for Harley, who became infatuated with the Joker and became his sidekick. But, does that really count as progress? All the patients we see who aren't from Blackgate Prison are wild savages who pounce on you on sight. And seriously, just take a look at the place. Does it resemble any kind of sanity to you? And there's also fear, obviously, because Scarecrow keeps trolling you throughout the night. Besides him, Batman literally has to face giant monsters on an hourly basis. He has to keep going deeper into the asylum no matter what he's feeling. and thankfully we get to see what he's feeling. I already mentioned a lot of the horror stuff like Killer Croc's lair, the end battle, and again Scarecrow. Interestingly enough, the way Batman is able to survive this nightmare is by constantly instilling fear in others, just as Batman does. Like I previously mentioned, you get to walk in the shoes of Batman in every way. The gameplay is phenomenal. It's never been so fun to be a depressed rodent man. There are several elements to the gameplay like the hand-to-hand combat, stealth combat, detective work, and gadget using, each of which work great. The combat is so satisfying, simple, and yet difficult to master. Even though you only have to press a button to counter and another button to evade, you still get punched constantly, but you're just punching yourself because it's so simple. Why am I failing at this? The stealth combat is my favorite though. You swing from gargoyle to gargoyle and sneak up on the thugs. Quick question, why are there so many gargoyles in so many rooms? It's like the asylum was designed just for Batman. Thanks, architects. Anyways, sneaking behind thugs, hiding in vents, and swinging around is really fun. What helps are the constant screams and cries of your enemies as you hang them upside down. The gadgets are really creative and cool too. Of course you get batarangs, but there's other cool stuff too, like explosive gel, multi-batarangs, the line launcher, and the Ultra Bat Claw, to name a few. They each have their own special uses and work beautifully. It's always cool collapsing a wall on your enemies. Something that Arkham Asylum does brilliantly is its use of its video game medium to enhance the story. Much of what goes on in the game, and the perspective it gives you, cannot be recreated in a movie or a graphic novel. Here's an example, again going back to the third Scarecrow nightmare. To not only scare Batman, but scare the player directly, the screen goes all wonky mid-game, making you think there's something wrong with your system or disc. It's a meta kind of horror. It knows you're playing a game, and shows you a gamer's greatest fear. This is not something a film can do. Also, right after when Batman is strapped in and being rolled into the asylum, we get a first-person perspective. After being taunted a bit by the villains, Joker points a gun at your head and shoots, giving you a normal death screen. Except this time, the death screen tells you to dodge the bullet. It's crazy. The game literally uses its own mechanics to deliver a weird, twisted joke. Again, you can't deliver this in any other medium, because what Arkham Asylum does is use the potential of games to the fullest to deliver an engaging experience. Wait, there's more to like about this game? Well guys, there definitely is. One thing that's awesome are the graphics. Well, I mean they were in 2009. The environments, the characters, and the cutscenes look great for their time. I especially love the animations of the thugs when they get knocked out, so the game looks amazing. It also sounds amazing. I've already mentioned the return of the legendary voice actors, but the soundtrack and the sound design are great too. The score can be really eerie sometimes and give you the chills. And the sounds when you beat someone up, it's like you can hear their bones getting crushed. The different environments throughout the island are also well realized. All the different buildings have a unique feel to them, and the cave areas are cool too. So yeah, the game doesn't just hit it big on the big notes, but on the small things too. Yeah, sadly, no game is perfect. Well, almost no game. I do have one fairly major complaint about this game, that thankfully the series has improved since. Well, maybe not. Notice in the gameplay how I didn't mention any of the boss battles? Yeah, they're not that great. Don't get me wrong, they're not necessarily bad, but not much effort was put into them. They're alright. For the most part, they all consist of knocking a charging enemy off balance, waiting for them to hit a wall, and then punching the dung out of them. It just loops that several times, and perhaps throws in a few thugs while you're at it. Ivy's is different, but still not that interesting. Even the climactic battle against the roided up Joker isn't that good gameplay wise. Also, it feels very convenient that Batman just so happens to have an extra Batcave under Arkham Island. Wow, this guy really does plan ahead. It just makes me wonder where else he's planted Batcaves. Does he have one in Metropolis, in the Monarch Theater, the GCPD, Disney World? Besides that, there's not much else I have a problem with, and it's not even that big of a problem. The boss fights just pale in comparison to everything else, and that's a pretty good sign. of all the Batman media that exists out there, such as TV shows, comics, movies, and video games, Arkham Asylum is definitely one of my favorites. It feels like another episode of the show, especially with the return of the amazing voice actors and the vast world that the game displays. It makes excellent use of the unique potential of the gaming medium in order to enhance the general experience and storytelling. It works as a fantastic character study of Batman and gives a great perspective on him. The visuals and soundtrack are awesome and add tremendously to the creepy, run-down atmosphere of the asylum. The gameplay works really smoothly and feels awesome when you're hanging someone upside down, and even though the boss fights are very average, each of the villains are really cool and well handled in this new continuity. So overall, there's so much to love about this game. Batman fans and fans of video games alike will definitely love playing it. The first two Arkham games are easily some of the best things to come out of DC and Warner Brothers in this century. Them, the first two Nolan films, and the Lego Batman movie, of course. And that is why Batman Arkham Asylum is one of my favorite things. Well, it's been a fun month. We've got to talk about Amnesia, Ghostbusters, It, and now Batman. I hope you enjoyed it just as much as I did. If you enjoyed this video, please remember to leave a like and subscribe. See you next week.